Hello, my name's Rob. I'm part of the clergy team here in Portishead. It's lovely to be with you today as we have our thought for this week. I remember a number of years ago, probably, well, it was more than 10 years ago, being on holiday with my family in Italy. It was a really lovely holiday. We've been in Florence with wider members of the family. But then when it came time to come home, we couldn't. It was raining horribly, and we couldn't take off from the Florence airport, so we had to get coached to Pisa, where we flew out, and then arrived back in London right in the middle of the night, desperately looking for ways to get back to Hampshire, where we lived at the time. And we went by Clapham Junction. I remember being at Clapham Junction in the middle of the night, and from Clapham Junction we caught a train to Guildford, and we got to Guildford, and that was as far as we could go. And there we were with two quite young children, one of them very young, and we had to get a taxi back to where we lived in Hampshire. I think I was back at work the next day. It was a fantastic holiday, but needless to say, actually, when I got back to work after the rigours of travel, I wasn't particularly well rested. But, I think holidays are something that perhaps on a lot of our minds at the moment. Many of us feel that we haven't really had a chance to get away, and are looking forward to the summer and the chance to have a bit of a break. But actually, that's not looking for many of us like it's going to be as easy as we'd hoped. Many people dreaming of foreign travel and looking at flights being cancelled and prices rising, thinking, well, maybe this won't happen after all. COVID has left us weary, tired, for some worse than that, struggling with anxiety and challenging mental health contexts, and we feel that we are in need of a rest, but wondering whether and how that will come. Well, the passage that's set for today from Gospels talks about rest. It's from Matthew chapter 11, and just 3 verses 28 to 30. And Jesus says this. This is in the New Revised Standard Version. Come to me, all you that are weary and are carrying heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Those are lovely words, aren't they? Well, perhaps the thing to think about first is yoke. When we think about a yoke, perhaps we might think about a horse, but we might think about somebody carrying one of those old-fashioned devices to carry milk pails or something, this bar of wood over your shoulder. And you think, well, Jesus' yoke may be easy, but I don't like the idea very much of a yoke at all. Why do I have to carry anything? But actually, the yoke that Jesus seems to have been talking about here is not a yoke that you wear on your own, but it's a double yoke that a brace of oxen would have fitted in. And here the idea is that rather than trying to struggle on our own, that we are in partnership with Jesus, that Jesus is on the other side, walking with us, keeping in step with us, that it's his yoke that he invites us to put on, sharing the load that we have to carry with him. It's rather a nice thought, I think, keeping in step with Jesus as we carry the burdens of life, whatever they may be. Let me read another translation. Well, it's a paraphrase of these verses, and you may have heard this before. It's often been quoted, but quite rightly. And this comes from Eugene Peterson's paraphrase of the Bible called The Message. And he writes this: Are you tired, worn out, burnt out on religion? Come to me, get away with me, and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me, and you'll learn how to live freely and lightly. I really love that. I particularly love the phrase that he uses, the unforced rhythms of grace. Jesus is the model for how we are to live. And as I think of these words, I think about that occasion which we see right at the start of Mark's Gospel, where Jesus has had an extraordinarily busy day. He's been teaching in the synagogue. He's gone back to Simon Peter's, and his mother-in-law was ill, and so he cured her. And then people brought all sorts of people who were ill and in need of help to the door, and he went and he healed those. And then we're told that early the next morning, he went up into a deserted place, a lonely place, to pray. It's a beautiful image, and that sense that Jesus was only ever as busy as he needed to be, that he took the time out that he needed, because he knew that he needed these unforced rhythms of grace. Jesus is our model, but it's important to remember that Jesus is also our companion. That when we find space, and I hope we do, to be on our own with God, actually it's lovely to spend time with those stories such as that one from the beginning of Mark, where we perhaps imagine ourselves into a situation that Jesus finds himself in, where he interacts with others. Imagine what it would be like to be there with him. And we allow that experience to lead us into prayer. It's a really lovely way of reading Scripture, and a really invaluable way of remembering that Jesus isn't just the model that we have for how to live, but he's one who accompanies us as we seek to live that way, as we seek to learn those unforced rhythms of grace. Life can feel so extraordinarily busy, hectic, and sometimes that feels like the only way to live. And yet we look at Jesus and we see somebody who sure was busy, but he wasn't busy for busyness' sake. He was always available to be there for people who needed him, that he didn't overburden himself. And he doesn't want us to overburden ourselves either. As he invites us to follow him, he says, "Walk with me and learn from me." It's what we need to do as individuals. It's also what we need to do as the family of God. Lovely to be with you today. Bye-bye.